Good afternoon. I'm Bonnie Simons with the Professional Tour Guide Association, interviewing Bill Lyons with the owner of Casa Rio in Shiloh's. And our organization is celebrating our 30th anniversary. And the purpose of this interview today is understanding your role in the formation of our organization. I understand that you hosted our first Christmas party at Shiloh's. You were the first treasurer of our organization. And 30 years later, we are being hosted back here at your restaurant. It's significant, and I am just wondering what drew you to becoming involved in the Professional Tour Guide Association.
Well, Bonnie, I think I was an innocent bystander, to tell you the truth, and maybe we had a place that we could meet downtown that was convenient with a parking lot. But, I think there was a lot of concern back then that just city government and even the CVB just were not paying attention to the importance of tourism to our community. And the tour buses were getting hassled about where they loaded and unloaded and where they could park. And so there was just a feeling that we needed a voice, that tourism needed a voice, a stronger voice in our community. And so I somehow got involved in that.
Well, I think it's wonderful that you did.
Well, our businesses depend on tourism
Yes.
so much.
Yes.
And so that's a part of it.
Now, can you just take a few minutes and review the history of your family's involvement with Casa Rio and Shiloh's? Like, did they start Casa Rio from the ground level? Did your father start it in 1946 from the ground level?
My grandfather started it.
Your grandfather started Casa Rio.
He had a store, appliance store up on Commerce Street level.
Your father's father.
No, my mother's father.
Your mother's. Okay.
Alfred Beyer.
Okay.
And anyway, he had an appliance store and went broke for the third time and ended up excavating his basement and putting Casa Rio in.
That is fascinating.
Because the basement was filled with a lot of river silt from the floods.
Yes.
And anyway, he made a bold move to get on the Riverwalk. Because back then there was no security, there was no landscaping. It was just a pretty sad situation.
Now, were you the first restaurant?
There was actually a restaurant on the Riverwalk for 2 years before Casa Rio.
Okay.
And it folded.
So you're
So
the
Casa
oldest.
Rio can say we're the oldest restaurant on the Riverwalk. And then Shiloh's, we purchased Shiloh's from the family in 1980.
In 1980.
The two Shiloh girls just got tired of messing with it.
Okay. And so that was 1980. And
Yeah.
that restaurant goes back to 1917,
Yes,
but it was
it's
established.
107 years old. It's the oldest restaurant in San Antonian.
So, what was the decade, the 80s or so, that you became the official owner and shifted gears from your father's ownership to your ownership?
Well, Grandpa died in 72. Dad died in 77.
Wow.
So I've been in charge since 1977. And we're still here by some miracle.
And one of the best restaurants on the San Antonio Riverwalk.
Well, that's good. When the cook shows up, that's great.
Okay. Did you grow up with this? I mean, as a young boy, did you come here frequently, and did they train you knowing that one day you would be the one to take over?
I knew nothing about the restaurant business. I was a food broker.
You were a food broker.
Yeah. And so when Dad died, we had the boat concession in the restaurant, and I've been responsible ever since.
Well, I think it's wonderful that you have.
And we've been greatly blessed to still be here.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
A lot to your credit and your father's and grandfather's credit. Sue McDonald, who is our first president and will be here at the celebration, she told me that you had hired her to come and train your barge drivers. You had the concession at the time of the river barges, and you hired her to come and teach them. I said, Sue, did they take a test? Did you create a test? And she said, no, but I went on my test was to go on each and every one of their tours, to listen to them, to give them feedback. And I just want to say that I'm impressed that you had the goal that you wanted anybody associated with you or your business to get it right, to get those facts and the history of San Antonio correct. And I thank you for that.
Well, Bonnie, that's funny because that's probably the reason I got involved. Our boat drivers were trying to give tours. And as you know, Texans tend to embellish the truth.
I do know that.
Sometimes.
I do know
And
that.
so we had drivers that had come up with their own spiel for the boat trip. And we said, we've got to get it consistent and accurate. And so I think that was
Your motive.
one of the main reasons that I kind of got involved. And that's how I got connected with Sue. And I remember we even talked to Henry Guerra, who was such a wonderful historian,
Yes.
and trying to get the right information for our boat tours.
Right, right. You know, as we reflect on 30 years of history as an organization, one thing that comes is very pronounced to me is that when Sue and her group started out, they only had a 3-day class. Today, we have a 6-month class. Now, I can't recall how many, when they had the exam, how many questions were on their exam, but I do know that today we have 250 questions on our exam. The students are required to pass with a score of 80 or higher. And as we reflect on our changes, I'm just wondering, what changes do you reflect on this Riverwalk since, in the last 30 years? I mean, what have you seen? What changes?
Well, I think the city has taken more ownership of the Riverwalk than they did in the past. And I'm just talking about keeping it clean, keeping it safe, and landscaping.
Yes.
And I think the boat operators, since we lost it in '95, have been more conscientious about some tours and some interesting tours. And they even do some tours now in Spanish, and they do some tours on special, like they're going to do a Halloween tour, I think. And so we've seen a steady progression of just improvements in lighting and wayfinding. And we have expanded our patio and trying to keep it really looking nice. And probably these umbrellas are the second most photographed place in San Antonian next to the Alamo.
I think you're right.
And they represent the Riverwalk. Anyway, we've just seen a constant improvement in conscientiousness by those involved to keep it better
Yes.
and cleaner and safer.
Yes, yes, yes.
And the new boats, they're quiet. We used to have those old gasoline
Right.
engines that made a lot of
They're not
noise.
only bright, they're beautiful. I like the design of them.
Yeah.
I really do. Well, Mr. Lyons, on behalf of the Professional Tour Guide Association of San Antonio, thank you. Thank you for your involvement through the years for our organization and for hosting us here for our 30th. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate what PTGA does for our community.
Thank you.
And the way they continue to sell it honestly and accurately.
Well, and we do our best, and I am proud of the organization. They have high standards, and we work hard to give the tourist our 110%.
Well, we have found that as we have trained our staff with some of the historical aspects just of this location, just the customers love.
They do. They
They
do.
love the history, and they love to be able to get in touch with the past that was here.
Yes, they do.
So y'all do a great job in helping and preserving that history.
We appreciate you being part of our history.
Yeah. Like I say, I was an innocent bystander out there.
Well, thank you for your time today.